Hello everybody and welcome back to Betting Expert. My name is Adam and I'm your host as we today look to some of my picks for this weekend's UFC 251 event where Usman takes on Jorge Masvidal in a welterweight super fight in the main event. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Today I have 4 picks for you. The first one is that I think Usman beats Jorge Masvidal in the main event of UFC 251. I have 3 reasons why I think this is going to happen. First of all, I think that we need to take into consideration that Masvidal's stock is very overpriced due to his last 3 performances that have been very impressive, but also against opponents that have been below the level of Kamaru Usman, in my opinion. I think this is important because it means that there is more value on the Kamaru Usman side. So this is kind of a recency bias, you can call it, and I think it stems from the casual bettors betting on Jorge Masvidal. So I think that we need to take this into consideration and place our money on Usman instead. Usman, of course, a very strong wrestler. He has a huge grappling advantage in this fight, and I think it's going to do him good. I think it's going to take some minutes off the clock, and I think he can grind this one out against Masvidal. And then historically, we just know that champions defend their belts about 7 out of 10 times, so that gives us some statistical significance on the Usman side. For those reasons, I like Usman in the head-to-head market. I will say that I think some more money will continue coming in on Masvidal. We've seen his odds drop from about 350 to now 3.0. I think that line will continue to drop a little bit, so I think if we wait a little bit, there might be some more value on Usman's side. Those are just my thoughts, and that's my first pick. For my second betting tip, we stay with the main event where I think that Usman versus Masvidal is going to go the distance. Here's why. Neither fighter has ever been finished inside the UFC. On top of that, Usman is a very strategic fighter. He fights very cautious and he likes to win by decision. He's won about 8 decisions out of 11 fights in the UFC so far. I think that gives us some value on these odds of about 2.2 that this fight will go the distance. I don't see Masvidal winning this via knockout, and I don't see Masvidal being finished either. And that kind of leads me to my next point, which is that Masvidal is extremely hard to finish. Never been finished in the UFC. He has been submitted and TKO'd once in other smaller organizations, but inside the UFC, he's never been finished, and he has gone to the distance in all of his losses. So if we kind of take the narrative that Masvidal is losing this fight, there's really high risk that this fight will go the distance if he loses. So for those reasons, I like this fight to go the distance. I like the plus money. I don't really get why. The general consensus seems to be that this fight is going to end inside the distance. Neither guy has the skills to finish the other, I think. So I think all in all, that's pretty good value right there. All right, guys, for my third pick of the evening, I'm going with Jessica Andrade to beat Rose Namajunas. We saw in the first fight, this is the rematch. In the first fight, we saw Rose kind of dictating the dance, landing the bigger shots. Andrade looked like she didn't really know how to crack the code of Namajunas striking. But actually, if you look at the numbers for the first fight, the strikes landed were actually pretty even. And of course, Andrade ended up getting the slam KO and became the champion. I think that we need to take into consideration that in the first fight, Andrade was actually, her odds were much lower and she won the first fight, and now we have the rematch where she's for some reason an even bigger underdog, which I think that makes no sense. I think there's some recency bias from the bettors because of her last fight with Wei Li, where she lost in about, I think, 45 seconds or something. I think we need to take advantage of that. I think we need to take advantage of that and bet Andrade. And she's about a 270 underdog in this fight. I think that's really good value. And historically, we know that in rematches, the winner of the first fight tends to win the second fight about 65% of the time or more. So I think that's some good statistics right there on our side. For those reasons, I like Andrade to get it done here against Rose Namajunas. All right, guys, my fourth and final betting tip for you is that Leonardo Santos beats Roman Bogut. I think his odds are about 157 right now. I have some reasons why I think that he's going to win. Number one, I think he has a ton of advantages on his side. He has the more experience. He's undefeated in the UFC. He's 6-0-1. He has one draw. And he has beaten so many good guys. He's beaten an up-and-coming Kevin Lee, and in his last fight he looked phenomenal. Got the early KO finish after a long layoff. He is 40 years old, but I don't think that really matters because he is a guy that doesn't look like he's affected by age, really. And Leonardo Santos is such a weird fighter in general. I mean, he won Tough Brasilia 2. He's a 7-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. He tapped out GSP in a matter of minutes. They had a grappling contest. And historically, we know that fighters making their UFC debut don't always do that well. And this is Roman Bogutov's UFC debut. He is undefeated. He's a grappling phenom. He is kind of a Khabib Nurmagomedov type fighter. But due to the fact that he will try to get this fight to the ground 100%, the submissions I think will be there for Leonardo Santos. He's such a high-level grappler that I just think that Bogutov will become cautious. And if this fight stays standing, I don't really see Bogutov having much of a chance. Bogutov, he's only had 10 fights in very small Russian organizations. The UFC is a really big step up in competition for most fighters when they make their debut. I think all in all, Santos gets this done 8 or 9 out of 10 times. I think he's just levels above. I like him at odds 157, and that's why I'm going with him for my fourth and final pick. All right, guys, those were 4 of my picks for this weekend's UFC 251 on Fight Island. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and always gamble responsibly.